All right. So sorry about that. I'm going to share my screen. This is something a little bit different. I've yet to uh, be sure of its value. I think it's one of those things that I wanted to present once I was able to get it working, and then it's up to the coordinators to really to figure out how best to use a tool like this, and I'll be interested to see if anybody uses this. But I want to add a new module, and of course, to do that, I click on the enable a module, and I want to sort for or search for record um, dashboard. Whoops. Okay, so the record home dashboard, and I'll enable that. So there's some pretty good documentation here that comes with this. So, I mean, you can go through this, but even after I went through it, I don't know, I have a short attention span or something, and I have to really do it to see it work because it doesn't really tell me a lot here. Anyway, so to try this, uh, some external modules when you add them. So if you were to look at the configure, there's really not a whole lot here. It allows you to configure a dashboard for certain users, but I don't have any user groups or anything. It's not necessary to configure the user thing, but it could be very useful. As you see what I do, then maybe you'll see how it could be useful. So I'm going to come to this dashboard editor that's over here on the left, because again, like every so often we have an external module that dumps the actual nuts and bolts of the external module over here in the menu. So when you do this, and I have to build this in order for you to see it work. And I'm actually gonna open up another window, and then I'll come to the record status dashboard here, just in preparation. So the first thing I tried is just to add a row to see what happens. And so I have a row, and then you can add 4 different types of features. I'm going to click on the add here, and I'm going to add a column. And in fact, I think I'll do this. Well, let me just walk you through one addition here. So if I click on the column, okay, you get 4 different kinds of elements that you can put in here. So I started by trying to put in a list. I didn't know what I was going to see. I just thought, let me put some stuff in here and see how it shows up. So I put in first name, and then I for the value, I thought I'd pipe in first name. And then I thought, well, let me add one more, and I'll put in last name. And the variable, just piping in the variable name, and save it. So this is what it looked like. So I went back to my record, because this is where this is supposed to show up. If I look at my record itself, you'll see that you now have below this a place called Record Home Dashboard, and you can see those 2 things. So at a glance, by opening this up, on the assumption that you did not pipe in, use this method to pipe in. This is an old class project from like 3 years ago. So I always taught people how to add the name here, but if you didn't do that and you wanted to show it down here, you could. So Then I thought, well, what else can I do here? So I went back here and I added another element here, and I just thought I'd make it another list because I still don't know what I'm doing. So I put in date of birth, and the OB is my variable name, piping that in, saving it, and then what happens? Oh, well, so I get another row, and it's grabbing that. And again, at a glance, when you open the record, you may have some interest in seeing some different things. And so in this particular project, I wanted to know, this involved a consent. So I went back in here and I added another one and I put consent and then put consent received, which was my variable as to whether there was a consent that was received. This is before I ever was teaching, better spell it right, before I was ever teaching e-consents. So I put that in and saved it, and then to see what it looks like, now I can see that there was a consent. So if that was important when you open the record, at a glance, you'd be able to see that, yes, they signed the consent, or no, they didn't. So then I started wondering, well, what about, I saw that there were features for another column. So I thought I'd try, splitting the column into, add another column, split that row into a second column. And I did that just by clicking on the plus sign on the row. And so here I wanted to play with the different options. So I thought I'd try text first, see what that looked like. So I just put links as a header. And then I thought, well, I'll do it, these decorations, which are pretty minimal. If I said bold and underline and save it, and then I come over here and look, I can see it starts out. I've got something that I can use as like a header, but of course, then you decide, well, maybe what if I want to center it? Does it take HTML? So I tried that. And saved it. And then came over to look. And sure enough, it does. So the text element lets you put in some text so that you could define things that were below it. All right, so I'm here now, so I'm going to add another little element to this and test what the link is like. So the link, when I look at it, basically it says that you could pull in a URL. So I thought, well, what if it would be useful to go straight to the consent form for that record, which is a survey. And so I put in the URL using the survey URL smart variable and the consent form. And then I put in an icon. So I was like, what's an icon? But if you look at the search glass, you can find that there are all kinds of different icons that you can actually use on this particular link. And I want you to see how it looks when it's done. I'm just going to put star on here. And I'll leave the rest of it the same, save it, and now let's take a look at what that looks like. And see, that's kind of cool. It creates a button, and then if I click on it, it gives me an error. And I was wondering a bit about that. And so hopefully I fixed this correctly. I went back into the link, and of course you can edit the link just coming into that little pencil. And this time I put in the event, because this is a longitudinal study. I should have mentioned that. I put that in and add the piece for the longitudinal study to make sure that you knew what survey was supposed to show up. And I put that in, and I come back here and look at this and click on this. There's my consent form. So my consent form automatically pulls up, but you needed to be a little bit more specific when you set it up. You needed to make sure you had the event defined, even though if I look at the setup for the longitudinal study, because the consent form in this particular one was set up for two different, it's one day, it's only one event, but it didn't matter. Fact was, you still needed to make sure that you clarified what event this was coming from for it to work. So get back here and get back here. Okay, so now I've got a button that I can use to open up my consent form. And I'm doing this all just from the ID. So again, if you go to the record status dashboard, you're clicking on that little number in the front, and that's what gives you your record home dashboard. And then finally, there's an option called table. And if I add one more here and call it table, I've got an event called EKG event where I could capture multiple EKGs. So I'm going to grab the repeating instrument, which is just the EKG form. And notice it brings in all the columns, and you can selectively decide which ones you want to view on this. And if you select no columns, then they'll all be displayed. You can sort this. And these are the three different fields for this form. So if you wanted to sort by something, the default is by descending, and I'll save this. And then let's go back here and just refresh this. And now you can see there's a table, and it tells you the interpretation, whether there's the tracing is a image. So there's nothing embedded here for an image. Otherwise, you just get the selector at the bottom would be if you had more than one page. I do not. And yes, I do know that you can get some of this information here down below. This involves clarifying what the label is for this repeating instrument. And again, just to point that out, if you haven't seen that before, in the repeating instruments, you define what it is that you want to see along with that particular repeating instrument. So when I come in here, I could have set this up just as easily to show the date and the EKG interpretation. On the other hand, I wouldn't have even had to put the date. It's all showing up right here. The nice thing about this is you can grab that. This just gives you some added information in a table form for your little record dashboard. So these are the four different types, and you can turn you can create text. So if I wanted for the row here, I think I can create I created a different column. I don't want the, if you need to delete a column, you just click on the little trash can. I was wondering about creating a text field for the row, but this
down below says add row.
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Yeah, that's something else I wanted to point out. So let's just say here I want to say put in a text field. Oh no, that's a column. I don't think I can type in here. No, I can't. And all I can do is delete. So if I take this and make one column.
Yeah, I think you have to add a column first to do anything.
Yeah, I do too. So if I add that column and I say add a text field, and I'm going to say my dashboard editor. I'll center that. And I don't see it. Hang on. See if it shows up. No. I did something wrong.
You might have to do the left, right. Go back.
I shouldn't. Let me see here. Let me just put in my dashboard editor. Oh, there we go. All right. Now, let's see what it looks like. All right, so I've got this here, but I don't like where it is. So the only thing I wanted to point out is you can drag and drop these things. There we go. So now we've got the header up at the top, and so there we go. You can drag and drop these things around, probably move the drag and drop columns. Anyway, it's a kind of cool thing. Again, I leave it up to coordinators to try and figure out how best to use this and whether it's useful in a project. But I wanted to make sure that we had a video of it in case somebody decides they want to do it, and the nuances, especially like if you wanted to create a link to something, you know, within here, you needed to make sure that you add, if it's longitudinal, you need to make sure that you add the event to the smart variable. So that's all I've got for that. That's the record dashboard editor. Any questions? Oh, thanks, Christy. I hope it turns out to be. I'll keep it in the back of my mind in case I ever want to display it to somebody else. It's a fancy little addition and allows you to see, because I know that there are so many projects that we have that, you know, you want to see at a glance. I think the best example is whether there's somebody was consented or not, or do they have a certain ID that's been provided for them, because some people have study IDs in addition to our record ID. You could add that on here. And certainly you can add it to the dashboard out here in the record status dashboard. But the problem with that is that there may be times where you want to keep that hidden. And remember that if you do this, and remember this adding the John Smith and all that is done through this custom record label. Everybody can see this. So you can't make some people able to see this and some people can't. But over here on the dashboard editor, if you wanted to add that name, etc., right. So it's not show you, you know, if you didn't have that, then you could have all of this. You know, user rights would determine or what user or what role or whatever somebody had before they could see this. So might be very helpful in that regard also. Anyway, that's all I've got. Does anybody have any questions?